Welcome to the Middle Ground Mike featuring Joe with guest commentator, my good friend Mike.
All right, welcome to the show.
Hey everybody. Hey Joseph, thanks for having me.
So, one of the topics we're going to talk about today is Utah banning fluoride in their water supply. So, they say that's great for your teeth. What do you think about that?
They told me it was great for my teeth, right? When you were growing
Yeah.
up, they had fluoride.
Yep, still do.
Right, they put it in toothpaste, they put it everywhere. Why are you all of a sudden banning fluoride?
Well, there's some people that say there's risk to your health, things of that nature. There's been several studies that have, but depending who you listen to, some of them say those studies are low quality. But some of those studies do say that fluoride in water has led to lower IQ in those children or individuals that they studied. But I mean, that could there's probably other factors that we don't know about. But I think it's maybe something, if there are studies out there that are possibly doing it, I don't know if maybe eliminating it right away is a smart idea, but I think we definitely need
Exactly.
to look at it.
If you're going to throw out a whole generation of, hey, we told you this will help you, it will help your teeth. It's in your water because it's
Right.
healthy for you.
Yeah. No,
And if that spreads and it goes from one to a state or another state, you know, you put tons of people at risk. So I think you need to study on this and give me more data just to, don't just ban something.
well, no, so that's a lot of scientists that kind of seem to toe the line or go like a little bit in the middle. A lot of them say we maybe need to relook at it, maybe need to relook at the amount that we put in the water. I think that's a fair thing to say.
Yes.
It kind of goes back to because a lot of this comes from RFK. And I know a lot of people think the guy's crazy. Whether you agree with him or not, I think it's fair to say that he's probably one of the few people that are actively out there trying to do what he thinks is right for people's health and not
Yes.
what he's getting paid to do.
Yes.
Who knows? We could be wrong, right? But kind of going back to RFK is the same thing with the fluoride thing. People think that he's anti-vax. My understanding is, and I could be wrong, is he thinks we need to take a look at the vaccine schedule and maybe not giving kids so many vaccines within such a small amount of time. Him and all of his kids have all their vaccines up, but the only one that they don't have, I believe, is the COVID one. So to say that he's completely anti-vax, I don't think is accurate. But the rate in Europe for autism, I believe, is 1 in 132, 33. Where in the United States, it's 1 in 34. Now, he's not saying that vaccines are the reason kids are having autism. He's just saying maybe we need to look at
More.
Is this causing it? Is it causing it because it's too much? Because Europe has a lot of the same vaccines we do. I think there's only a couple different, like they have a couple less, but they spread them out more,
Yes.
and their kids seem to have less issues.
Yes.
So I think it's fair to say that we need to relook at the vaccine schedule.
Yes.
Now, I'm not for banning a lot of these vaccines because you see these areas down in Texas where they don't take the vaccine at all, and now they've got a measles outbreak. So, there's always two sides to that coin. But I think anytime, lots of things change over life. So I don't think it's a bad idea to really look at the vaccine schedule. What do you think about it?
I believe that the system has to change and upgrade. So you have to always relook at things and think of the things that are currently happening and for the future. They're using the same system. So yes, I do agree that he needs to relook at things and update them because the system doesn't quite work like it should be.
Yes. I think that's definitely a very fair, thing. It's, I've got my, in case anybody's wondering, my son is vaccinated. Both of my sons are vaccinated. I'm vaccinated. My wife's vaccinated. As far as I know, nobody that I know personally is super anti-vax. But there's a lot of things that, do change with time. Like, for instance, when my son, Henry, was 6, going on 7, when he got diagnosed with autism, I guess I just didn't agree with the way that how he was medically diagnosed, and I just didn't think like how that whole process was. I don't feel like it was enough to really grasp what was going on with him, right? And if I would have just kind of took them at their blind word that it's all autism, this, that, and the other thing, I don't know if I would have tried to. I don't say pushing is like the right way, but I tried to make sure that I felt he could do more than what they felt he could, you know.
Yes.
And I feel like sometimes when you get that diagnosis, there's that not toss you aside factor, but don't expect much of this child factor. That seems that's not, people don't verbally say it, but it seems to be there.
I believe that doctors see things at a medical perspective.
Oh yeah,
So they don't know that,
but things change.
but things change and people are different. So growing up, yes, everybody, what? Everybody grows up to be who they are slowly at their pace.
Right.
You might have, I mean, we had a president who had a defect. We had a couple presidents that had defects. If you look at it,
who was it? Albert Einstein was tongue-tied.
yes,
You know, one of the things where I question some of this is when Henry was going through this process and was looking at different, you know, signs of autism,
yes,
diagnoses, things of that nature, and speech, like, because you know his speech is still, you know, he's getting there, he's talking more,
yes,
still these phrases, and I didn't agree with that because I had speech delay. I believe I believe my younger brother had speech delay, and neither one of us considered autistic. So I don't think having certain things like that
yes,
makes something wrong with you. You're just different, you know. For instance, I think one thing can be a tick is you're chewing on a pen cap. I'm like, well, man, if that's it, then so many more people have issues that we don't know about. And I don't think that's the case. You know, it's, you know, does Henry have autism? I would say yes, that he does, but I don't think it's
defines his individuality. That
right.
is
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's it doesn't define him.
Yes,
And I feel like sometimes that is like too much of the focus is look how great he's doing because he's autistic, rather than this kid's excelling and he's getting better.
yes,
I guess that's where my end is of it. You know what I mean? It should be celebrated on him overcoming certain things
right,
rather than he's overcoming it because he's autistic.
yes.
That's what I don't, because I feel like that puts a lot of kids at a disadvantage that may not be at that disadvantage because it changes the way that they think about themselves.
See, that'll bring me into that education, RFK thing, because then he's doing the school board thing. You know, I kind of think about it with the phones. I like that kind of, sort of.
Oh, banning the cell phones. You know,
yes.
That's a. You know, I think it definitely needs to be done by a school district by school district, but I think every school district should be required to address it.
Yes.
And they need to have meetings and talk with the parents. Because, you know, I get why some parents want their kids to have a cell phone. I'm not knocking people being concerned for the child's safety.
Correct.
I mean, I have a son that's in high school. You know, but at the same time, like, I'm guilty of it. You know, be sitting there in the house, just next thing you know, you're on YouTube going through those shorts, and it's an hour and a half later, and oh man, I've looked up and the whole world's passed me by. You know, so I get it. You know, and I know kids
do that.
Kids are slick.
School.
You know, they're going to do that in high school too, and you know, but I think
the focus so they can be the future.
Yeah, I think it needs to be done at a local level. I think, you know, maybe there's a system that, you know, RFK or whoever handles that can come up with, but the decision should be done at a local level. We should, you know, the whole purpose of this administration was they don't tell us what to do.
But I also know, because I listen to my kids, they were willing to fight back on that one. She already said something about it.
I mean,
her generation willing to fight back about this.
There's always, you know, but getting into the fighting back thing, that's
their voice.
No, it is their voice. But first, anytime you change any habit of any kid, they fight back.
Yes,
it could be taking peanut butter away from them.
Correct.
And if they love that peanut butter, they're going to push back.
Correct.
So that's not as much about the voice of their generation is. It's something that they enjoy, and you're taking it away from them, and they don't view it the same way that we do.
Correct.
But we also experienced a world of analog where things weren't so linked.
Yes.
And how we were able to do things differently.
Go outside. Right?
Yeah. And so, but they don't have that experience, and the world's not like that. So I think you got to find a balance in everything. Because a lot of things are distracting. Heck, if you're in a movie theater and somebody's talking, you're distracted.
You're distracted. Yes.
Right. And then you lose focus on the movie. It's no different.
Yes.
But you know, definitely good discussions there. Cell phones in school are a very, very hot topic.
Yes, it is.
I remember when I was in high school way back in the day, this young lady had a cell
Pager?
phone. No, she had a cell phone, but back then, like you could get permission, I think, from your teacher or from the school, something of nature. I believe she was, young lady that was pregnant. But she was allowed to have like in her backpack for an emergency or whatever. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, before I knew she was pregnant, right? I was like, oh geez. I'm like, somebody's gonna beat you up and take that thing. But it is what it is. Moving on from that, let's talk about those eggs for a minute. On the preview trailer, eggs have come down 3 weeks in a row. What's crazy is, we were looking online and you can find a dozen eggs at GFS. It's a a mini grocery store type of thing that's here in Metro Detroit. They have it on there for $3.99, but of course you can't get none online. But I think the average we've seen was right about $5. Now that's down because they were up to like 7 something at one point.
7, 8 something.
It is down, but from what I was reading, the reason why we're not seeing it drop down as fast is the grocery stores are selling out of the eggs that they did pay for at a higher price.
Yeah.
So, but I know that the administration is, or not the administration, I think it's the FDA, whoever pursues it. They're looking for eggs outside the U.S., but it's going to be very hard because Europe does not pasteurize their eggs. They don't handle them like we do.
Yes.
They don't refrigerate them the way that we do. So it's going to be very hard to find a supply that matches how we handle food safety. So, I think that's a thing. But, and also you got the cage-free movement that has drove up the price, because you can produce less eggs in the same amount of space.
Yes.
So it naturally drives up the price because the farmers, they got to make money.
Yep.
Whether it's a corporate farm or, a mom and pop farm, they got to turn a profit.
Yep.
Profit pays for things. So I think that kind of puts everybody in it puts everybody in the pickle. The farmer, the consumer, the company.
It does.
The companies are making more money, but here's the problem: when that price comes down, those companies are going to feel
it's ditch.
Yeah.
Now all that
because you're going to get some folks out there, some companies are going to be like this windfall money, and they're going to want to invest in something that might be a fool's errand, and then they're out all that money. I mean, every company does it. We do it as individuals too.
Yes.
I can't believe
human nature.
I can't believe we found a dozen for $3.99 at Gordon's, and they don't have none in stock. What a scam! Just kidding on the scam part, but that's I think Walmart. Even though I make my own ground beef, good, I try to when I can. I think Walmart was down to like $4.10 or $4.15 a pound for ground beef, which is down from like $4.50. So I think that's kind of leveled out a little bit.
Yeah, that's leveling out. Yeah.
Gas keeps bouncing between 20 and 30 cents. Depending where you go, it'd be like $2.80 then $3.10.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. So I mean, like the prices have come down a little bit in certain things, and they're stabilizing. For certain things,
for certain things, general life is starting to slowly pedal through.
Well, yeah, I know that I did see that. What was it? Houses, I believe, sales are slowing there, which will definitely help with rents for people not going sky high, and maybe my property taxes won't go up for once, but I'm not going to count on that.
I haven't seen that yet. I haven't. I'm watching the market for, I'm trying to find a house. So I'm watching the market. I have not seen that yet. It is hard to actually say, hey, I found a reasonable house for a family of 5.
Well, they say, we're heading into a recession. And if we do, one thing with recessions is prices generally will come down a little bit.
How about this? I'll let you know.
You got the house prices that seem to be stabilizing. They're not skyrocketing anymore.
They're not skyrocketing. No.
So, that's a positive. But then you also got, beef prices that seem to be stabilizing. It's always a positive for everybody involved. I've got, my teenager eats like a horse. So,
don't they all?
So that helped stabilize my pocketbook a little bit. Anybody who knows me, knows I'm like, oh my God, my kids eat like crazy. Especially Henry. My God, man, that kid will sit there and be like, some days he'll be like, I want tons of macaroni and cheese, or he'll eat like a bunch of noodles, or he'll just like go on like an orange binge and he'll eat like half a bag of oranges.
I just call them vacuums.
I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, we were the same way when we were young.
Yes,
I'm just sitting there, I'm going like, man, how did I not get sick? Because if I did that now, I'd be, I'd be in the bathroom getting sick.
Yes.
But that's
their metabolism.
the B20 again.
Right, but they don't use it no more. We had to use it.
Oh no, my son uses it. My son, he likes to take and go to the park and hang out and stuff. So as much as he is a homebody and likes to be on his technology,
yes,
I love the fact that he also has that like desire to go out
to get out. Yes,
he likes to go out there, and sometimes you'll see people playing music. He's big into music, so he'll join in or he'll do his thing. And Henry, if it's nice outside, Henry would rather be out here running around the backyard with his tractor and like laying on the concrete than he would be in the house.
Yes.
So while my kids love their technology, they also seem to have a love for the outside too, which is great because I know that there's some kids that just don't have that these days, and that's always a bummer. I mean, I had that, but back in the day, if your friend wanted to play a video game with you, they had to come over.
Yeah.
And you had to do split screen where you had to like squint your eyes. You're like, oh my God. I remember back in the day, getting blisters on your thumbs and things like that. And throwing your controller and
taping it back up.
My dad yelling, be quiet, it's 2:00 in the morning. Go to bed. But my dad never called me by Joe. He always screamed Joseph. So, I mean, I feel like that's enough for today. I appreciate you stopping by, buddy.
All right, thank you. It was fun.
Have a good one.
All right.
Stay tuned for more previews.